Hello all. So welcome back to discussion on time-dependent perturbation theory. So till now we have discussed the semi-classical theory of the atom-field interaction. And next we have to discuss the quantum theory of atom-field interaction. So before that we have to first of all discuss the quantum theory of light. So actually it is not a part of your syllabus. So we can just go through it. And once you are okay with it, then we can discuss the quantum theory of the atom-field interaction, basically the transition rate in the atom-field interaction. Okay, so this is the outline of today's lecture. So we'll have a small introduction about the quantum theory of light, its applications. Then we'll just revise your classical theory of field, then the quantum theory, and finally we'll go to the Hamiltonian corresponding to the atom field interaction. Okay, so if you look at the quantum theory of light, so basically called the quantum optics, has many applications, many real world applications. So these are the some of the applications I have pointed out. So this QS is actually the acronym for the quantum experiment at space scale. So it is basically an experiment between the China and Austria. So they are sending the photons from China to Austria as a part of quantum communication. Okay, so they use the phenomena like quantum entanglement, the quantum teleportation, etc., for the secure communication between them. Okay, so that is in the experiment scale. So it is actually in picture. So using satellite, they are performing such experiment. And the two experiments are the controlling of atoms, the controlling of photons, which is basically done by the Wieland and Herausche. They got the Nobel Prize for this. Okay, so we can control the individual individual quantum system like atoms and photons if you apply the quantum theory. And another application is one of the popular application LIGO. So this device basically used to find um, uh, the gravitational wave, and again this has used the applications of the quantum theory of light. Particularly they used a special state of light called skews light. Okay, so anyhow we will not going to discuss these aspects in our discussion. We are just giving an overview about what are the some applications of the quantum theory of light. Okay, so once you go to the classical theory, so in classical theory is very clear to us. We use the Maxwell's equation in classical theory for the electromagnetic field, and this is a basic Maxwell's equation. Okay, so containing source term rho and J. Rho is called the charge density and J is called the current density. And here E and B stands for the electric field and magnetic field. So all these terms are having the same meaning. So in free space, what would be our Maxwell's equation? We can modify the Maxwell's equation in the form of the wave equation. Okay, so that means in the free space, both electric field and magnetic field satisfies the wave equation. Then we can go for the potential formulation. So we can define a scalar potential phi and vector potential A such that the electric field can be defined as minus del phi minus dou I by dou t, and the magnetic field is simply the curl of the vector potential. Okay, and we always have a freedom to us for while choosing the scalar potential and the vector potential. We can have multiple sets of phi and a such that it gives the same electric field and magnetic field. Such freedoms are called the gauge freedom, and one of the famous gauge is a Coulomb gauge. So if you use a Coulomb gauge which is set del dot A is 0, then we can see that the scalar potential satisfies the Laplace equation, del square phi becomes 0, and whereas the vector potential satisfies the wave equation. Okay, so then it is possible to set phi equal to 0, and this vector potential satisfies it will have a solution of a wave, a three-dimensional wave. Okay, so we can set phi 0, and the vector potential I can write as some constant q into e raised to I k dot r minus omega t into e cap. This e cap represent the direction of polarization, and the k represent the propagation vector, and omega represent frequency, and q is the amplitude of the vector potential. And it is very clear that k and omega can take any value. Okay, so this is one possible solution. So since k and omega can take any value, then its superposition is also another solution. So therefore, a general solution is simply the sum of all such vector potential, and so such sums basically becomes integration, because k and omega can take any value. So the continuous summation becomes integration. But dealing integration is a difficult task. So we are going for another mathematical condition, that is we'll be using the condition known as the box normalization. So assume the field is confined in a box of width L, and in general L can tend to infinity. So if it is confined into the width L, then the omega cannot take, or omega or k cannot take any values. So those values become discrete. Okay, so k become, so in particular direction x, the k become only multiples of 2 pi by L, and the frequency become 2 pi by L times c times root of mx square plus my square plus mz square. So this mx, my, mz are just quantum numbers. It can take any value, any integer value. So 0, plus or minus 1, plus or minus 2, etc. So therefore a general solution, so since the omega and k become discrete, and instead of integration we can go for general solution as a summation. So this a of rt can be written as sum over lambda. This lambda yeah, I have as giving a subscript a lambda, okay, an index lambda, such that this lambda corresponding for a particular mode, the k lambda gives the propagation vector for that particular mode, and omega lambda e lambda, and in general there can be the complex conjugate of that as well. Okay, so here e lambda represent the direction of polarization. Okay, now since we are using the Coulomb gauge, we can show that this k dot a must be 0. Okay, so remember this k is a propagation vector, so that means the direction of polarization must be perpendicular to, direction of polarization must be perpendicular to direction of propagation. So okay, so k is direction of propagation, and a will be directed in the direction of polarization, so that must be mutually perpendicular. So that is this symbol means. Okay, so that means there can be only two independent directions for polarization. Okay, so polarization cannot be in 3 dimensions, polarization must be confined in the 2 dimension. So in such cases, okay, now we will use the term mode. So the mode is meant to be a particular direction with a particular polarization. Suppose the wave is propagating along a z direction, then the electric field can be oscillate along x direction or y direction. So x direction oscillation can be set as can be called as one mode, and y direction polarization is said to be another mode. Okay, now so that means if direction of propagation or direction of polarization, if any one of these changes, we says the mode changed. Okay, so in general, and in electromagnetic, classical electromagnetic wave can take any mode, so it can propagate along any direction with any polarization. So if any one of these changes, then we say that the mode changes. Okay, so finally, the electric field. So in classical theory, the electric field mathematically I can write in this particular form, because since the electric field is simply minus dou by dou t, and magnetic field is L cross A, these are the expression for the electric field and magnetic field. So I'm just skipping all the mathematical steps. If you are interested, you can just go through it. You can find that. Okay, and what I'm interested is a Hamiltonian. So the Hamiltonian, okay, so classically the Hamiltonian is in the free space half epsilon 0 integral e square theta, and 1 by 2 mu 0 integral b square theta. So if you integrate it, the both the electric field and magnetic field squares, then what you can see is the Hamiltonian will take very simple form. It become 2 epsilon 0 v. This v stands for the volume of the box. Okay, remember we have assumed the electromagnetic field is confined in a box of width L. So that this V represent the volume of that box. So it's basically L cube. Then sum over lambda, omega lambda square, q lambda star. Okay, now it is possible to rewrite this complete expression. So for that, I am introducing two variables known as capital Q lambda and capital P lambda, such that the Q lambda and P lambda are defined by this particular equation. Okay, so then if you reverse it, that is, if you just find q, if you just write q lambda star, then you can get the expression for capital Q lambda and capital P lambda in terms of small q lambda and q lambda star. So I am leaving that steps to you. Okay, you can do it. Okay, so if you finally do that, then what I can find is that I can write my Hamiltonian in this particular form. Okay, the total Hamiltonian is sum over lambda half P lambda square plus half omega lambda square Q lambda square. This expression is basically the expression for the harmonic oscillator. Okay, so the mathematically, so an electromagnetic field can be considered as a combination of infinite number of harmonic oscillator, and each harmonic oscillator corresponding to one mode of plane wave. So, okay, so till now we have not done any condensation. So this is just a classical theory, and what I have done is I have just modified that expression according to my convenience. So in order to go for the quantum theories. Okay, so when you're going to the quantum theory, the first step is we have to introduce the postulate of condensation. So according to postulate of condensation, the canonically conjugate variables are replaced by canonically conjugate operators, and which will satisfy the commutation relation S. So since if Q lambda and capital P lambda are the canonically conjugate variables, then I can write the corresponding canonically conjugate operators such that capital Q lambda, capital P lambda commutator becomes IH cross chronicle delta lambda mu. Okay, so consider the Hamiltonian for a single mode lambda, then H lambda become half P lambda square plus half omega lambda square Q lambda square. Okay, so remember we are just considering about a single mode, particular mode. Okay, now I can introduce another two operators, small a lambda dagger, such that these two operators are called the annihilation and creation operators. We'll see that why it is called annihilation creation in the next slides. Okay, so if you introduce these operators, then I can write my Hamiltonian for a particular mode as a lambda dagger a lambda plus half h cross omega lambda. So these are one of the famous Hamiltonian that you have studied in your quantum mechanics 1 while discussing the harmonic oscillator problem, the operator method of harmonic oscillator. Okay, so there we have discussed this Hamiltonian, and so that means if you have the total electromagnetic field, we have to sum this H lambda over all possible mode. So that means your electromagnetic field is nothing but the superposition of large harmonic oscillator mathematically. Okay, so these are mathematical construction. So physically, it is slightly different. Okay, but anyhow, you can see that a field is a combination of mathematically. You can see the field is a combination of large number of oscillators. Okay, so since this is your Hamiltonian, now I can use all the mathematics that we have used in your problem of harmonic oscillator here, and you can show that this Hamiltonian will have a lowermost energy, and that we will call the ground state energy. And you can see that you can show that this a lambda dagger a lambda becomes a number operator such that a lambda dagger a lambda acting on n lambda gives n lambda n lambda. So this ket n lambda is the eigenstate of a lambda dagger a lambda. So this ket n lambda is called the number state corresponding to the eigenvalue n lambda. So your n lambda can take the value 0, 1, 2, etc. And what about A and A dagger? Okay, so if you look at A, what would be A acting on N lambda? What would be A lambda acting on N lambda? So that becomes N lambda times N lambda minus 1. So that is why, so what would happen is while acting A on the state keten lambda, it reduces the quantum number by 1. So that is why this A lambda is called annihilation operator. And what about A lambda dagger? A lambda dagger acting on N lambda gives, sorry, so there is a square root here. square root of n lambda plus 1 get n lambda plus 1. Okay, so this a dagger increases the quantum number by 1, and that is why this a lambda dagger is called the creation operator. Okay. So now finally, what would be my energy? So the energy, the H lambda acting on ket and lambda gives epsilon lambda and lambda, where epsilon lambda become n lambda plus 1 and n lambda plus half h cross omega lambda. Is m lambda, n lambda can take any value 0, 1, 2, 3, etc. Okay, I've used epsilon lambda because I have already used E for energy. So E for electric field. So I am using epsilon for the energy. Okay, so just in order to differentiate that. Okay, so usually we use capital E for energy, but here I've used epsilon for energy. Okay, so for a single mode, the possible energy become half h cross lambda or 3 by 2 h cross lambda or 5 by 2 h cross lambda and so on. And one important thing is the energy cannot be zero. So each mod will have some energy. Okay, so therefore the classically a single mode can have any possible energy. Okay, but what about in quantum? In quantum, it cannot take any possible energy, so the energy become discrete. Okay, and classically the energy of a mode can be zero, but in quantum mechanically energy cannot be zero. That is, every mode is present always. Okay, so there is some difference between when you're going for classical theory to the quantum theory. Classically, in electromagnetic wave, we can take any possible energy, and all modes need not be present all the time. Okay, because the energy of a mode can be zero as well. But in quantum theory, the energy of all modes are present because energy cannot be zero. There should be a lowest possible. There should be a ground energy called half h cross omega lambda for every mode. So that is the one important thing. That is quantum mechanically, all modes are present. Okay, so I'll write here. Quantum mechanically, all modes of electromagnetic field is present always. The reason is epsilon lambda cannot be zero. Epsilon lambda is always greater than zero. Okay. So the energy of each mode can be increased as packets of h cross omega lambda, because if you look at the possible energies, if you look at the possible energies, okay, the lowest possible energy is half h cross omega lambda. The second possible energy 3 by 2 h cross omega lambda, then 5 by 2 h cross omega lambda. So what is the difference between them? So difference between them is h cross omega lambda. So difference between there is for each excitation it requires h cross omega lambda. So okay, so the excitation of mode is possible with quantum of energy h cross omega lambda, and this energy is called photon. So here comes the quantum interpretation of photon. So photon, what is a photon? So photon is basically, basically the excitation of each mode. So in quantum optics, or when you're going to the quantum theory of light, the photon is not localized at one point. It is extended to complete space, and it is the excitation of a mode. Okay, so then means if the energy of a particular mode is n lambda plus half h cross omega lambda, then we say that it contains n lambda photons. Okay, so if energy is 3 by 2 h cross omega lambda, then we say that that mode contains one photon. Okay, so the photon is basically the number of excitations of mode. Okay, Okay, so number of photon is number of excitation of a mode. Okay, so this is one important point. Okay, so such theories are there in when you're going to the quantum field theory as well. That is the electron or proton or any elementary particle are treated to be the excitation of a mode. Okay, so the same theory is applicable here. When you are looking at photons, so photon is treated as the excitation of a field mode. Good. Okay, now our total Hamiltonian. Now the total Hamiltonian will take the form sum over lambda, a lambda dagger a lambda plus half h cross omega lambda. And what would be the possible energy eigenkets? So energy eigenkets can be considered as ket n1, ket n2, ket n3, etc. So ket n1 corresponding to first mode, second mode, third mode, lambda mode, etc. So it can have infinite possible modes, and each mode will have some energy and some number of photon. So if you say the ket n1, the ket n1 says it contains n1 photons and energy n1 plus half h cross omega omega 1. And ket n2 means ket n2 contains n2 number of photons, it contains this much of energy, and so on. Okay, so now what about a general state? Okay, now a general state, suppose if you have different mode present at all the time, then first mode contains n1 photons, so I can represent its state as ket n1. The second mode is ket n2. The third mode can be represented as ket n3, etc. Then a general state is the tensor product of all such states, like ket n1, ket n2, ket n3. Okay, so in general, I can represent that state as the ket n1, comma n2, comma n3, comma etc. up to all modes you can highlight here. Okay. Now, then what about vacuum? So vacuum, we can say that the state with no photon at all. That is, number of photons in every mode is zero. So then, if zero photons are available, then I can write the first mode contains zero photon. That is 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3, etc. So this here is the quantum representation for the vacuum. It contains no photon at all. Okay, now what about the energy of this state, the vacuum state? So vacuum state are a state with no photon. Now what about its energy? Now if you look at each mode has zero photon, but zero photon means it has energy of half h cross omega energy. Okay, that is called the ground state energy. And if there are infinite number of modes, then we have to add infinite h cross half h cross omega, and that will leads to infinite energy. Okay, so that means the vacuum will have infinite energy. Okay, so this energy usually will called as a background energy, and such kind of infinity comes in all the quantum field theory. So this is just quantum theory of light. When you are going for a general quantum field theory, will face such problem of infinite energy. Okay, so that we cannot rule out. Okay, so there are some ways to avoid this infinite energy. Now, this infinite energy usually will not give some no importance for it, because it acts as a background energy, and that is a static, because there is no change for that infinite energy. And what the humans are interested in the change in energy. Okay, so that's for in the practical application, this infinite energy may not to plays any role, but in some cases this infinite energy or this background energy plays indeed some role as well. For example, in case of the explanation of the spontaneous emission, we may have to invoke um, the uncertainty or the fluctuation, the quantum fluctuations of the vacuum energy and all. Okay, so in those cases, we may have to invoke uh, the the infinite energy of a vacuum again. Okay, but in most of the problem, we will not consider this fact that is it has infinite energy, so that is treated to be a background energy, because we cannot take anything from that. Okay, we cannot tap any energy from infinite this 0 point energy. Okay, so therefore we have no directives for it. Okay, now we can move to our important thing, that is we have to know what is um, the expression for the vector potential when you're going for the quantum theory, because that is required in order to know the atom field interaction potential. Okay, so the vector potential is already written in this form in classical theory, and we have already found this q lambda and q lambda star can be connected to your annihilation creation operators. So therefore I can connect this q lambda star towards this a lambda and a lambda dagger, and I can rewrite my vector potential in the new form. So this would be our new form of the vector potential. Okay, so the vector potential in terms of the annihilation operator A and the creation operator A dagger. So these are some of our all possible modes. So the finally the interaction Hamiltonian. So interaction Hamiltonian is form we already known. So it is E by mc A dot P, and A in terms of annihilation creation operator is given to us. So have to just take this with the momentum A dot P. So so therefore, we can identify many things, and here the time dependence comes in e raised to minus I omega t and e raised to plus I omega t, and all other terms we can kept here in v lambda. Okay, but v lambda is given by this complete expression. So this v lambda and v lambda dagger. Now this expression is familiar to us. Okay, so this is nothing but the harmonic perturbation, and its implication we already discussed. Okay, because while discussing time dependent perturbation theory, we have discussed two kind of perturbation. One is constant perturbation and another one is a harmonic perturbation. So this is a kind of harmonic perturbation. So finally when you're going for the quantum theory, we are getting the harmonic perturbation for the atom field interaction, and its discussion is well known to us. Okay, so that's all about the quantum theory, and next we have to discuss what would be the transition probability. Okay, so we have discussed the semi-classical theory, and now this is the expression for the quantum theory. Okay, so both in semi-classical theory and quantum theory, the expression for the atom field interaction potential look like similar, but there are some changes. Okay, so obviously this V depending upon the annihilation operator and V dagger depending upon the creation operator. So there will be some implication when you're going to the quantum theory. So that obviously we'll discuss in next class. So in next we'll discuss about the transition rate and the dipole approximation using this quantum theory. So thank you all. We'll see in the next topic with this.